Most of them that come on aren't, but I just click live. It's going to take a couple of minutes.
Okay. And I
So,
know well enough that live means we are live.
well, right now we're live on the replay. We haven't,
Right.
we haven't, like whatever we're doing right now is going to show up on the replay. But let me see if it's made it to the different platforms. Huh. Let's see. So there you are. Yeah,
Yeah.
your
I
signal
had
is
my
working.
background all set up for you, and now we've got which is good.
We can
It's
do it this way. You
no,
want
no,
to
no. That's really
okay?
okay.
How about that?
All right,
Is
we'll
that
see. You get to see my little crystal
yeah?
setup, but actually, this is the other place is better. I can
You
see
like the other
you.
place? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, it looks like we're coming on now. See, it's been. Oh yeah, we need another minute.
okay.
So
And
yeah,
if I knew any better, I'd say, oh, let me stream this to my Facebook, but I don't want to touch anything.
I can. You know
So,
what? I can do that for you right now.
yeah,
Yeah,
I actually,
I'll tag you on it. You might have to go in and allow permission of it, but let's see how this works. Let's see if it lets me do it. Yep,
nice.
let me do it. So you are tagged, which means it should show up on your wall, or at least send you a notice saying I just tagged you. Click on it and then allow it to go on your wall. So I was just I get so many messages and emails, and I can't always put everything together because it just can't do it. and
Sure.
but I went to your page in the last 2 or 3 days. Don't ask me when, but and I realized without having to go look through all the messages. You work with children, and you're also tied in with uh, God, Michaela and
Ethan?
Ivan. Yeah,
Yeah. When's the
group
last
over
time you slept? A couple hours ago?
about an hour ago. About I woke up 30 minutes ago. I just went from one show back down to on my back. I talked to Morgan for like 3 minutes, and I was like, I got it. I can't. Something's happening. But this has been going on for like this is the third day. So I
Well,
think there's a lot of integration happening. But yeah, being tied with those folks, and I've talked to them about some of the stuff that they do when they've been on the show, and one of them is how they involve children, and you seem to be a big player in that. But
I,
so yeah,
I was watching their the interview you did with them. There's really not any good way to prepare for talking to you. I just have to tell you that. Watching a bunch of shows and maybe seeing a pattern in your question. There's only one question.
yeah,
But maybe I'm sure we'll get
that's just a fun question though.
that. And I love that question. But
That's turned out to be a fun question because um, yeah, I used to kind of start things like that, but
yeah.
then
Well, I
I was
watched their interview back
yeah.
in December, and I must tell you that you actually wrote my name down. They were talking about the children's stuff,
I
and they
yeah.
said, "Oh, if you really want to find out about our children's program, you'll have to talk to Kaylaa." And the first time I heard that, I heard my name mentioned, and it was like, "Oh, cool, my name is mentioned." When I watched it this time, you actually turned and wrote my name down. So I
I do that.
somewhere on a piece of paper is my name.
I'm really good at that. I've gotten a lot better now. Uh, I've gotten a lot better at following up, but it just takes so much. I mean, it's like every time I clear it, I cleared it like 4 days ago, and there's just another avalanche.
Yeah.
I literally, I slept like 3.5 hours last night, and in 3.5 hours, I got 15 messages of, about the show.
Wow.
But
Well, I
that's,
know at 2 a.m. you were texting me at 2 a.m. and at 4
yeah.
a.m. That was so weird. It,
See,
I,
and this is what's happened. We just start talking, and that's why I stopped asking the question first and foremost. I do it now as a joke, kind of, but um, I just start. We get on, we'd start talking, and the next thing you know, we'd be in the middle of the show. I don't even play the intro anymore, and so
I
on.
was going
But
to ask you about that. Yeah.
yeah, I don't even. We just go right into it. But yeah, that's when I went to your page was last night, and I don't normally follow up with people, and I wasn't following up with you, but I got to tell you what happened. It was really funny. So Morgan and I did a session. I can't remember if this happened before or after, but it was indicative of the alignment of energy. So we did a session. We've had, I want to say the last 5 sessions we've done privately, they've just been through the roof. And last night was no exception. So there was a couple of people that I was supposed to get back with. So I sent one to my friend in Australia, this gentleman in Australia. And I said, hey, you want to do, I had you down for, you want to do a show late next month. So he wrote me back and he said, absolutely. Yeah, let's do it. And so then I went on to the next thing, and I guess I saw you there. And because of what happened last time, I went, I'm going to send her a note. I'll see you tomorrow. Now, not even knowing what time it is anywhere in the world, not even where I'm at. So what happened was, while I was writing you a note, he sends me a note back. And he says, I got to tell you this, brother. I'm driving down the road watching your show from today. I guess he was watching it, after on the replay. And he said, and in that moment, I was like, man, Todd and I need to get together again. I feel it. And he said, and within a minute, your message came through saying, do you want to do a show? And then, so I read that, and then I'm back to doing my work. And then I get another ding, and it was you. So you had just woken up for no reason and looked at the phone, and there I was. Right.
That was, I mean, I keep my phone as my alarm clock, which, frequency wise, they say don't do that. But so I was having this dream about, I need to write something down so I can remember it for the show tonight. So I rolled over, and it reminds me, I'm actually, thanks to you, doing a little bit of investigating on lucid dreaming. So I've got this book going, and before I go to bed, so I've been tracking my dreams. It's really fun.
Yeah.
So in my dream, I was rolling over, and in real life, I woke myself up because I actually rolled over. And then I see this light flashing on my phone going, what? So it's like, that was weird. So dreaming about the show, and then there's your message.
You know what?
I was able to go back to sleep. I really appreciate that fact.
Good for you. I wish I could get some. I've been taking sleeping pills, which I really don't like doing, but
yeah.
I've been taking them the last 2 nights, and I'm having very intense lucid dreams. I know what their theme is, which is all about accomplishment, progress and collaboration, and it feels like a very much a group collaboration. Like we're all up there working together. But I haven't been had enough wherewithal to even write down what it was. But at least I know the general thing. I was going to tell you, I noticed with Evan and Kaylaa.
You mean Ethan?
Ethan, I'm sorry.
Ethan.
Ethan.
Yeah. He'll find you if you don't say that right.
I kept seeing the name. Yeah, because Emmett Fox is one of my favorite authors, and that's why I always, through association, remembered his names. I'm pretty good with this stuff, but God, I just butchered that one bad. I hope he's not watching.
Not yet.
I had I had like when I first met him, in his relationship with Yeshua, mine was brought in the same way. Like that's the essence that brought me in. So I always kind of had I understood him. He's a very interesting guy. But what I was going to say is that between Ethan and Kaylaa and Brooklyn and you, and then the energy I pick up off of when I've gone to the site, the YouTube or the website, and just looked around, y'all all seem to have something in common, and it's this of course, this awareness of what's happening, but it's also this what am I trying to say here? It's also this initiative of this energy of initiative and implementation into, I want to say, the 3D. Not that you're 3D, but that you're not waiting on some woo-woo or anything like that. You're utilizing the multidimensional knowledge, skills, and abilities, and you're just going to. It's almost like you're just going to work every day. You're just doing it in a different way, and also collaboratively. I think it's really impressive. So I think you guys are doing a great job. Do you live out that way?
Thank you. I live in Cleveland.
Oh, you're in Cleveland.
And so I'm about 3.5 hours from where Michaela and Ethan do the monthly event.
Mm-hmm.
So when I found that out, I traveled up there often. And Brooklyn's in Tampa. I was just down there in March.
Oh, she's in Tampa.
So, yeah.
I lived there 3 times. I didn't know she was in Tampa. We were down there last year. We should have looked her up.
It's a lot of fun. They put that summit on last year. Her and Emily. Well, really, I've got a list for you. You've got some really good people out there that I'll add to your email list of.
You have to give it to me. You have to give it to me.
That'd be awesome. But they put on a summit that for basically people that haven't been in public yet, that are doing amazing work. And
really, was it? Was it in person? An in-person?
It was in person. So 12 of us filed in. I was going to be on the agenda and had to back out last minute, but I went down there anyway. It was so transformative. I mean, not even being the speaker, but just going through that.
When was
that together? End of March.
End of March, yeah. Yeah, there was definitely something in the on the upswing. You know, we had the Soulogy Fest into May, and it was just it's still you know, rippling through the people that went. I still get messages every day about the experiences and the connections being made. But I love the idea of providing a platform for people that haven't been out there. You know, I've spent the last couple of, a long time, but if I just look at the last couple of weeks, even the last few days, I have a standard. I think you might have gotten it, because when I was trying to catch up to everybody, is when I got in touch with you. I worked for 9 hours going through 200 plus messages, but I was just letting them know, hey, this isn't a marketing or promotion platform. It's really for, what's your story? And also, which part of that is what are you doing? From a personal perspective rather than from a teaching perspective, because that's out there everywhere. Organically we'll move into what you're doing. It's just a different mindset. And it's interesting because I've gotten a couple of messages in the last few days where they basically tell me where to get off at. But I think I'm putting it together kind of diplomatically, but it's interesting.
What do you mean by that? Or
I had one person write me this big long list. They came through someone that I like a lot. It's been on the show, and they were saying, first of all, they called me like 4 times. You know how people call you, and I don't even answer the phone if I know the person. Hardly, I don't talk. I don't really interface with anyone much, but Morgan, and just because that's just what's going on right now. But so I noticed that because it went to message requests, I never got the phone calls, and then I go in and check, and see if there's people trying to get in touch and that type of thing. And so, basically, they wanted to talk to me, and I said, I'm busy right now, and I really don't do private chats because I really don't have the time. And what really, I don't have the energy because it ends up being 30, 40 minutes, an hour or two, and I just don't have the energy right now. The personal energy to me seems to be on point in every moment, just so you can stay present in the moment. But so I just told that person what I said, and then they gave me a big, long write up on all the things they do and that whole thing. And then then they stopped that long paragraph and they went to the next one and said, I don't need to explain all this to you. Have a good day. So it was, but but I get that. I have a lot of respect for people that pull down, you know, um, just a lot of intelligence, a lot of code, downloads. It's got to be for any of us a challenge to the ego, the friction of the soul, right? And but I see a transformation taking place since, I want to say, since the very end of 2019, which is, to me, really, you can see it in the energy practitioner field, where the old modalities and not all of them, but the older style, the older template and pattern of interaction is changing, because people are becoming more self-empowered. And it's
Right.
an interesting thing to watch in that arena, as well as in the platforms like this one, where I spend a lot of time examining these things and exposing myself to different platforms to see what the nuances are. And I'm noticing that people are gravitating to the story, not in the victim sense, but to, hey, this is who I was, this is who I am, and this is what came out of it. Kind of like your situation. I don't know all of it, but this, obviously, what you're doing with these children is a byproduct, I'm sure, there's more than one, of your personal awareness expanding and transformation. And then, of course, the collaboration that you guys have over there is pretty incredible. I think that's the name of the game. I don't know why I was talking about all that. Did you ask me something? So we can go over
No,
this.
but
Is the last.
I'm seeing all the different like ins that we've got to go in directions here. And what's funny is July 3rd. Why I remember it was Saturday night. Yeah, I've got nothing else to do on a Saturday night but watch you, Todd. I don't know if that's good or bad. So I think I was somewhere and I came home and I flipped the computer on and you popped up and I'm thinking it was a replay or something, but it was live. It was about midnight. Why am I watching this? And this was one of the nights where I didn't know this, but there were 4 or 5 people and somebody just popped in. So it's one of your open mic nights or whatever you want to call those.
Yeah, that's what they are.
And I couldn't stop watching. So it's 2 a.m. and I'm still watching this. And something came up that prompted me to share an experience of various consciousnesses watching my own birth. And it was, how do you do this in a short little paragraph that I know I catch your eyes down here looking at, comments as they come in. I knew I was in a special place when you actually took interest in that and read it. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, now I've got to break the ice, send the email. It's like, it's all timing,
Isn't it?
And truly this, like 6 months ago, I would have run to the nearest corner and go, I can't do that. And now an hour ago, my heart was beating out of my chest enough to wonder if I could speak through this. But I've been watching you so often that this truly, I don't know if I'm watching you or if I'm really in this right now. So yeah, I love your giggle, by the way. I think I told you that, whether you ever read that. The first time I ever heard you giggle, it's like, we've done this before. So there is just some
we've done playful
energy that is just so much fun.
Yeah, we've done this before, right? Like did everybody catch that? I mean, when the interaction I remember the most, because I just remember energy more than anything. So I remember the early exchange. Like there was an early exchange. I get back with you, and of course I got lost in the woods, and then it was not too long ago, and then I had to pull the plug that one day. I can't go on today. Like that just doesn't happen. It used to never happen, but I know now. Like if my body says no, then I got to say no. And you were very, very understanding. But in that exchange, it was like, and I think it's kind of like reflective of the new energy or what's happening with the energy. It was almost like I could see you sitting before me, like something happened, like in that exchange. You wrote to me and you said, I got to be honest, I'm a little disappointed, but I understand, right? And there was something in the first few words where I just went, whoa, and it's almost like there was a hologram of you in front of me. And I thought, oh, I know this person. Like I know her. Like I feel it, So to me, it feels like we're just picking up where we left off.
Well, there is like this, you're like a brother. It's really fun. So since, like I first saw you, I have to admit, probably the first time I saw you, I'm like, who is this guy with the ponytail and saying some words that like, this is not your spiritual master, like talking like this. And then it's just so authentic and like,
yeah,
here you are, what you see, which is where people give me the feedback too, is that it's just you, I don't know how. I don't do it well when I try to do the other.
Yeah.
It's
there's something about just jumping in there and just doing this, versus premeditatively planning or anything like that. There's just something about it. I don't know what it is. And I watched it for 3,000 shows. And then as time's gone on, I've realized what it is. Like I just received a message from a woman who's been on the show like 2 or 3 months ago. And it was her first time coming out, which these are great, like when they start to break the ice, especially the feminine. And she came on and she was just incredible. I mean, she was just amazing story, amazing life. And so she writes me a note and she says, I don't know what the hell's going on, but I'm writing you this note. I've had these major transformations, major things happening over the last few weeks, and basically she went to where she said, maybe we can just talk privately and see what happens. I don't even know what I'm bringing to the table. I don't even know what I'm saying. And I went, bingo, there it is.
That's who I want on my show.
Right. I said, so let's do that, but let's do it openly. Because there's something there. There's like you call it the third energy, but like what's created between our connection creates another energy, which is also part of that energy is everyone that watches No Linear Time, present and replay, So all that energy is there. And I believe that's where the best code's coming now. I really do. That awareness to authenticity, which then puts you in vulnerable situations, so vulnerability, which leads to transparency. And I think that's where we're headed, which is going to, and I'm going to skip here. I'm going to skip over, but going to your page, on your Facebook page, and looking at your photos, I didn't go in depth, but I saw enough to know how, when I say far out, I mean like in a good way, how far out you are working with these children, not just that you're doing it, but that you're open about it. That's a pretty powerful thing. So
I'm laughing because there is, yes, and I'm getting there. My mainstream life, speaking of October and changes in October, so I'm a special ed teacher.
Okay.
And have been for about 20 years with kids with emotional and behavioral challenges, which is quite an arena. All the kids basically that have gotten kicked out of public school that can't make it there. It's a day treatment center that I have worked in. What just made me start, oh, yes, being out there. So many, probably 90% of the people who go through Ethan's Lightworker program, once we have a numerology, astrology reading, it's highly recommended that we choose a spiritual name, more numerology, I can't say that word. One that's got better energy or more people energy, more approachable, more, that independent, do it on my own kind of thing isn't like the most approachable. So in that sense of being out there, I've got two lives, not lives, but so it's really been since 2018 that I've really started this work with the kids. Family was very grateful that I changed my name when I started talking about some of these things, so we don't have the embarrassment. Like my first talk,
What is the name, or is this the name? Kaylaa Kayce. It's
Kayla Kayce. Kayla Kayce. Here's a clue. Whenever you see people's names with a lot of vowels in it,
okay,
they usually change their names.
Okay, I got you.
So yeah, some people are like Kaylaa. What is that? So to answer, kind of in response, I'm now coming closer to integrating those two worlds.
Yeah.
But one of the things, giving presentations about like children with ET abilities and hybrid kids and all that stuff, and having a teaching license, working with kids, was like, ooh, I'm not ready to do that yet.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting is I stepped away from teaching for a couple of years. I had some medical issues, and it was the perfect time to do that. In August, I felt the financial fear that many of us do, needed to go back to work.
Right.
Ended up going back to the same place. And 6 weeks later, got the tap on the shoulder not from them. I voluntarily left, but I was literally laying in bed at 3 a.m, getting ready for the week and doing lesson plans, pulling another all-nighter. So I understand your all-nighter with answering emails. Mine are lesson plans. And I'm laying in bed and I'm like, can I survive 8 more months of this? It was just all the old patterns came up of questioning my competency, of like always feeling behind. I took the spiritual work with the kids, and thought if I could just maintain this until June, just maintain what was, the level of output. But really, teaching is just all consuming, and any teacher out there just knows that. I mean, there's no such thing as, a 50-hour week. It's more close to 60 in your weekends. So I'm lying in bed exhausted. I'm just not this person who I want to be. And self-doubting and being tired and too tired to meditate. And in that question of how can I keep this up, was this overwhelming flood and little voice. I don't hear the voice, but I knew it.
Yeah.
You're done. And I'm like, wait, say that again? Like at 2 a.m, I was a stressed out maniac with like financial fears. And now at 3 a.m, but this peace and this first joy that I've probably felt in 6 weeks eked out. And I did my litmus test. I don't know if it's like, okay, I just had this major activation and transformation. Let me see how I changed. So I take some belief or some pattern or something, and I kind of put it out there and see if my head catches it in the same way. It's like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do when the bills show up? Well, it's all good. You're not going to be homeless. Well, you can talk to that. But it's not, it's okay to leave. It's time to leave. The next commitment is going all in with this spiritual work.
Wow.
Not even saying I've got 3 or 4 months. Let me see financially what happens in 4 months. It's like, no, this is it. And it was so exciting. It wasn't scary. So that's 3 a.m. I ended up taking a video of myself, just because I'm weird like that, of 6:38. I had my letter to HR written to resign, and hit the send button. and then went to work. It was that deep of a knowing. I've only had that like 3 times in my life, and there was no
So
reason to think
was
about it. That
that
was
was last year.
end of September. No, that was like 6 weeks ago. That was 4 weeks ago.
God, for some reason I thought it was like summer.
Well, August is when school starts.
So this just happened. So
This just happened.
we've caught you fresh. I mean, this is great.
Now, 2 weeks ago, it would have been a lot even fresher. So yeah, my
Wow.
last stepping into the building was 2 weeks ago, and I'm still not.
Yeah.
I'm okay. I was going to say it. I'm still not spazzing out. I don't even want to say that because I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, but
So it's so amazing. I mean, like, how do these transformations happen? And then October, I'm on about a 4-day cycle of huge things happen. If somebody looked at my life, you'd never know anything was happening. Like, do you leave your house at all? But the inner shifting has been relentless.
October
and I
was
barely have time to like even journal it. I'm taking a few notes because literally I have no idea what took place 3 days ago, and it was so big that I want to remember it. But I'm already on to the next thing, and it's really strange shift in patterns that I'm okay not capturing it.
yeah.
I mean, I've got years and years and years of journals that I can go
Yeah.
back, and there's something about like I want to get it down. I want to like not lose it. And in my mind, the only way not to lose it is to write it down. And lately it's just, you know what, I'm experiencing it and this is enough. So that in itself says something big is happening. But
That's a great snapshot. That's what it's all about. I mean, in October, to me, like, what is it today? The 2nd of November. I mean, October to me is like almost the only thing you can talk about. Like the very recent past and the present. That's like it was such a massive. To me, the 10th, 11th, 12th, that period, there was a significant paradigm shift. Like we've been having stair step, stair step, stair step. You know, you can go back to whoever you're talking to, but say 2012. But October was just like boom, like that. And it wasn't like you just had this that you just had this awareness, like this yogi-ish type of sage awareness. It wasn't like that. It's like everything's changed. Like even what you're talking about with documenting everything. Like I've said it, Morgan said it. I've heard other people talking about it. It's like when we pull it in, it's done. So like, you know, the books, and not that you don't write books or we don't do it, but there's just something about the way things, energies being or information's being transferred and shared. And, you know, and another thing that you said too, like I've tried to work on not making self-deprecating comments, even if I'm saying it, making a joke, because I'm realizing how powerful these words are now because of the alignment of the you know, let's say the thoughts, the words, the actions. But when you were first telling your story there, I was thinking about my brother Franco, you know, and we spent a couple nights in Sedona privately together. So he was telling me about 5 what we would call near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences that he had between 2013 and 2000, I think 19. And the last one that he had, his guide's Yeshua.
we have to talk.
Right?
We have to go in that direction when you're done.
I think
here.
we come from the same branch of the tree of life, right? And so, so what happened was and a lot of people don't know this, but he had Lyme's disease, and he literally was told by the doctors, you shouldn't even be walking. You shouldn't even be alive. He had, and I think he had some DNA upgrades through his team that defied, for, you know, lack of better words, defied medical science from a human perspective. But so he really battled. He really battled for 4 or 5 years. But so anyway, he goes up into the cosmos, and who's standing there? Yeshua. And Yeshua says to him, "What are you doing here?" And Franco, in his little boy manner is like, well, I don't know. What am I doing here? I guess I'm supposed to be leaving. He's like, no, you can't leave yet. Anyway, you said something that made me remember this. And I just want to share it with everybody because I think it's important for all of us. And so Franco said, because I think Yeshua said to him, well, don't you want to go back? And he said, well, yeah, because I don't feel like I've done enough. And in that moment, Yeshua showed Franco the ripples of everything he had done up to that point, which was even before I think he started. It was actually before he started coming on Soulogy 2 years ago, because we did 50 plus shows. And he saw the impact of what he had done. And he was like, oh, wow, I didn't know. So I think when you're talking about what you've done, even on a linear timeline, it doesn't look like that much. I have a feeling that this is one of the paradoxical realities that's going to come to the surface, which is to see, what little things we've done from our perspective are huge. And I think almost more than anything, if I look at what you're doing, Mary Rodwell.
Mary was my key code activator.
See, I was going to ask you if you'd see, here we go again. Yeah. Because Mary's like, she's an OG. Original goddess. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, because it's focused on the children, but not in the conventional way. In other words, a conventional way is, okay, come into this room. We're going to tell you what to do. We're going to tell you how to think. You guys are coming at them going, what's going on with you? What's happening? I believe you. Let's go further with this, and that's pretty powerful. Because these kids are extremely powerful. We know this probably better than anybody.
It's just so much fun. I mean, backing up to Mary. Well, oh my gosh, Todd, seriously.
Wherever you want to go. This is the last show, so we can go an hour and a half, 2 hours if we want to. I like the long runs.
I wondered why I made this at 8 o'clock at night. Was I crazy? It was like sitting in the dentist's office at about 5 o'clock waiting for my turn. It's like, oh, seriously, I could have done this at 6. But it's all good. So yeah, boy, there's so many places. Well, here's life in a nutshell. Mm-hmm. Okay, my life has been like so interesting that my what do they call that at the end of my bucket list? On my bucket list is writing a book and a memoir, and like, who would want to read it is the question. But it would be like every decade is like a different lifetime for me, and it's fascinating. I truly know when these kids are coming in, and it's like, let's do all the karma first, get all this density out of the way so we can go on to do amazing things. And part of, like, I'm convinced that these kids in this day treatment center are as much crystal rainbow children as the ones on my call, that, I'd go from this incredibly negative, violent, difficult situation by day and jump on a youth call at 7 o'clock and have what I would consider the spiritual kids. And for the longest time, they were like two separate worlds to me, until I came to realize the only difference is environment and who's been supportive of who they are in their life. Now, that's not the only, because there is that contract and that blueprint that we all have. Or key codes aren't activated until you're 58. Doesn't mean life wasn't interesting prior to that. But it's like, even my first 10 years was growing up in a tough home. I had a young sister die, who I have to tell you is Franco. Oh, you just had her on. The woman who taught you never to ask a question.
Nicola Farmer.
Yes. I'm in this mode of making space in my life, so internally and environmentally. So I'm listening to that interview while I'm cleaning my room, and I'm listening to her share about her sister that passed. And I'm standing in the middle of my bedroom, tears running down my face when she said that she talked to her guides and wanted to finally know why her sister left and what was the purpose and what was her lesson and all that. 62 years later, that went in such a deep way. And what she shared was that her sister's plan was to come and influence the medical field in the way that she chose the illness that she had and ended up passing. Well, my sister was born with what they say is a hole in your heart. I don't even know what the medical term is, but this is back in 1960. And she was in one of the first experimental infants, for this new heart surgery that now they just do. As a matter of fact, when a child's born with this condition, and she died in recovery. So they successfully did the surgery. They didn't account for the recovery aspect of it. And she passed. Well, I was like 4 years old. Wow. And that experience, she was 2.5. That experience colored my entire life, from the grieving and taking on the family's grief, to asking really deep questions as a teenager, and why are we here, and why did she die and not me, and what would life be like? She was 18 months apart, so I can see through the next 50 years to the level that she has impacted, that her leaving has impacted, down to the point of having some memories and experiences of recognizing at a soul level, if I would have known that she was going to leave, would I have wanted her to be my sister? I mean, talk about some deep, heavy work. Yeah. I was working with an energetic. Yeah. So, I mean, it's just fascinating. But once again, I thought I resolved, accepted, allowed. And then here comes Nicola, like just knocked my socks off with that. Yet one more piece of the puzzle that allowed the healing,
to take place. Another key code activator, I believe. I just want to give you some validation too. That's a really great point. That story that you told. And here we go again with the what seems to be a minimal, occurrence that has beyond global ripple effect. Repercussions. I have a very good friend of mine I grew up with, and we stayed in touch. We always stayed in touch, and we both got married for the first time in our early 20s, and he had his first child when I had my first child, and they're 32 now. Well, his child, so this would have been, I want to say like 1984, 1985. His first child was born with a hole in his heart. And that child had a surgery within days. And then, to my recall, has had, I want to say, 3 more. I think the last one was maybe at the age of 27, 28. And so I guess what I'm saying is, I know that that young man hasn't had a physically, less than challenging life, but I'm just letting you know that there's one out there that I know one personally. So
that's pretty intense. I think I heard you share this whole ripple effect that Franco kind of learned about. Can you imagine if we were all gifted with that for just 2 minutes of our life, to see how we affect people in ways that, as a teacher, you always say, well, you have no idea how you're impacting these kids, and you'll never know, and they come and they go. And every now and then you'll know the impact you're having.
Yeah.
which is so powerful. But to even find meaning in our life, I mean, all these years personally of not wanting to be here. I mean, my second chapter of the book, The Second Decade, I was really, really depressed as a teenager. And intervention is what probably kept me alive a couple times in my life.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. I would just say never sell a gun to a depressed person. So literally one of my down points, my lowest points in my 20s, was sitting there with a gun. And I truly, I didn't have a really intense spiritual conscious connection back then, but I have no doubt looking back that there was some angel or guide or somewhere along the way that says, just don't do this. You know, I wasn't, because I don't know why I didn't, you know, there's like no logical sense, which is pretty intense. I mean, I go back and I look, and it is all tied with where we could go with this. Your question that you didn't ask is, have you always been this weird, or was there a particular awakening that you've had?
Sounds like you had a bunch.
Well, yeah, and the weirdness is like really special to me. So when you ask, that is my mantra pretty much with the kids: weird is good.
I believe so.
Yeah. One of the common characteristics of these kids, one is 98% of them are highly empathic, but the other is many have really internalized feeling weird. They struggle to really authentically be themselves, whether it's in their family, certainly with friends. So whenever this comes up, and it does. I mean, I part of running these groups, and part of my ADD is coming out right now. I've got like 12 different.
That's okay. I'm the same. Hey, we're multi-dimensional. We're multifaceted here.
There you go. So I'm on multiple dimensions right now. I like that. Forget yeah, we don't need any labels. It's, however, I don't know which of those threads that we had. So I was talking about the weirdness.
Yeah.
The pain that these kids carry when they first even come to the group. So that's where I was going. We have opportunity for community to really be developed with these kids, and sometimes for the first time realizing that there's other kids like me out there. Usually it's mom on a spiritual path that sees my work and gets them on the call, and sometimes they don't even know why they're on the call, except halfway through they see other kids talking about energy and auras and empathic, and they're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And they keep coming back because this is where they're finding home. Wow. I had, and the feedback from them, I mean, the feedback is tremendous. And it sets me in this place of not even appreciating what level of contribution I'm making, because it just seems so natural to just engage with these kids. But
think of one kid, because let's face it, the weird ones, they're, you know, if they can make it out of the fray, which I got to believe with people like you that more and more of them will, on a percentage, at a higher percentage, but just impacting one of those kids, that's like, you know, I mean, how many Forrest Gumps do you have here? I mean, these are miracles that are being supported versus being made to feel more weird. I bet you there's not 10% on this, watching this on the live right now, that wouldn't consider themselves weird. growing up. They were the weird ones.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
Well, and probably the first 30 years of my life, 40, 50, um, it, I was always, I never felt right. Like it was always this fear of if somebody really knew me, that's just not a really good thing. Um, so it was kind of like feeling weird and putting a whole lot of energy into looking normal, looking happy, looking like extremely feeling really depressed inside, but you'd never know it to look at me and being good in sports and my grades aren't suffering and there's nothing wrong with her, which is a blessing and a curse because then nobody really notices that you need some help.
yeah.
But having that weird inner sense was truly what some of these kids are coming with. And one girl, we had an in-person event, and she's I think it's 12 or 13. Just she could barely even say this out loud, but she had just had interaction with her best friend, and after 2 years, finally decided to have the courage to tell her friend that she sees spirits. Now, the first time I met this girl, we're talking about, superpowers. We address it as superpowers. Like, what kind of superpowers do you have? Do you see spirits? Do you hear spirits? Whatever. And she's like, very casually, well, I've got a spirit that hangs out on my ceiling. And this is early in my work with these kids. And I'm like, wait, what'd she say? She's got a spirit on her ceiling. I don't have spirits on my ceiling. So it's like trying to still be cool about this, while my mouth is open going, oh my God, tell me more. So this has been a supportive being for her for the longest time. And she finally wanted to be authentic with her friend, and who she thought she knew, this girl turns around and accuses her of like spawned from the devil. And the entire relationship was over. I mean, it can you imagine, 12, 13 years old and just being crushed by here. I'm feeling safe enough to put myself out there. And just how many of these kids learn from an early age, very early, probably, you start going to school and everybody says you're too old to have imaginary friends. And it's like, well, tell him that, he's standing right next to me. And, the wise moms, and we've had some conversations about at least letting the kids know that it's safe enough to talk about some things at home. And there are discerning way, some things it doesn't mean they're not true, but there's certain people you can talk to and certain people that you really don't need to tell them certain things, for the child's sake.
Yeah.
And that kind of raising kids today is really, really tough.
Well, this is eye-opening. How long have you been?
I want to tell you this story about this girl.
Yeah.
So here's this girl.
Yeah.
She's joined the group. And at the time, the group I'm talking about is the Conscious Youth group that's connected with the Flower of Life.
Okay.
So when I first came to this information, I was working with Ethan in the Lightworker program. And as I got in touch with my gifts to work with kids.
So you went into the program as a member or an attendee. You went into the program for yourself.
I went in as a 58-year-old who actually heard Ethan talk about his Lightworker program and say, I can take people from people who have practices and want to hone their practices and get put out in the world, to the person who doesn't know what they want, what their gifts are, what their passions are, what I want to be when I grow up.
Right.
and help you find that and put you out and help you create a sustainable service in this world. And that was one of my 3 core knowings. As soon as I heard that, it's like I knew I needed to be in this program, but I couldn't make my mind. I needed my mind to catch up. I needed to give it a couple days, even though my heart like immediately knew. This was right after I went to an expo. I had heard about Michaela's work maybe 2 years earlier. It was maybe 2015. My ascension process was about 2012, so I fit the pattern of all your other interview people.
Yeah.
And ended up going to this expo in 2017 all by myself. It was just like I felt drawn at 3 hours away. Let's do it. Mary Radwell was talking at that expo. And all I knew about her was that, you know, she's this ET experiencer, counselor, regressor. I really was not all that into ETs, like belief-wise. You know, I'd barely gotten my head around the fact that Kaylaa is channeling and could believe that. And there was some credibility there, but, you know, ETs on spaceships, I just don't honestly know. You know, it's much easier to believe in this non-being communicating than there's really spaceships. So that's where I was at. Really, that's where I was at. And I'm listening. It's a presentation that Mary was doing about children. I'm like, well, I got to at least stay because it's about children. The ETs.
Now, what year was this?
This was 2017.
Was she in person or was it?
She was in person. Yeah, she was in person, and her book just came out, The New Human.
Okay.
So she was giving a presentation on The New Human, and I'm sitting in the audience, and she's talking about, you know, the stories of the children that she tells when she's on talks like or shows like yours, and about these kids who talk about going to school up on spaceships at night and learning about this and that. And my 3D mind is like, am I really sitting here listening to this? And at the same time, boom, I don't know. I heard about what key codes were, but I never knew what they were. They were just an intellectual idea. Well, I'm sitting in the audience and my head is just pinging. I mean, literally, it's like electricity going off. I couldn't hold the thought, and I was mesmerized by what she was saying. So my first inkling of even what is one of these children, what is a conscious youth, what is now the hybrid stuff took me a little while to even wrap my head around, and that's for another talk or another show. But it was that weekend then that I set aside. Ethan I had maybe talked to once in my life. I asked for a numerology astrology reading, went there in November, and by January I was starting the program with him. By June, once I found out that my niche, my gift is with kids, their conscious youth program had kind of been, I don't want to say on the shelf, and just inactive for about 1.5 years. And we brought it back, and that kind of became my training ground. And what I was told, and other light workers have probably said this to you, when you start this program, one of the things that we do is have Kaylaa channel.
Right.
Specifically for our mission and purpose. What is your soul's purpose for being here? And what came back for me was that I'm going to be working with Crystal, Rainbow Kids, in preparation for working with the hybrid kids when they come. Now, what does that mean? I had no idea what any of that stuff meant. And what I was also told is that the more I work directly with the children, then I will be given more information. So
Isn't
here
that
I
how it
am,
works?
like blind on this blind faith of, okay, well, let's have you involved with the Weekend in Wizardry, and then we're going to start this group. And I'm like, I don't know what a conscious kid is. You
So
want
it's
me to
like,
do what
and
with
is
who?
and isn't that's the way it works too?
It
I mean,
is.
it's like that whole build it and they will come, right?
Yes. Put yourself
Which,
in the arena
yeah.
and you will know that you're protected. And I'm like, wow. So I have all these Zoom calls from the very first shows that I have. And what is so incredible is that there's a handful of these kids that are still with me 3.5 years later. And little 9-year-olds are now 13, and watching them and just the physical changes and who they are coming into their own gifts and in this world, which takes me back to this girl, the weird story with her friend. She was on one of those first calls, seventh grader, um, really struggled, was bullied a lot, stuff I learned from her mom, just really quiet and set back, and did tell me about the spirit on her ceiling, but really insecure. And I had a teacher come on that was an energetic practitioner, actually my guy that in 2012 I met, totally synchronistically perfect. And I had him come on as a guest teacher for these kids and teach them really about how to set their energy. And they're all empathic. So, the stuff that's coming at them, let alone in a school environment, just how overwhelming that is. Then add the judgment of the kids, then add, you name it, and they're carrying some really heavy stuff. So he taught them how to, get in touch with your core star, emanate this out, create this bubble, and told stories about he'd go walking in the mall and he'd have his bubble and literally people would feel your energy coming and they would just part. It was like parting of the waters. And he's telling these kids that and encouraging them to experiment over the next couple days of truly put your bubble out and watch, just watch. Be open to it, be playful. You don't have to believe it, just try it. She came back the next week with this, like, she just looked different. And she said, it worked. Fast forward 3 years, he came back on. I'll call her Annie. In one of my talks, I use her as an example. So Annie, I said, well, you were on the call when David was here. So can you tell us for the other kids what that was like for you? And I didn't know half of this stuff. But she says, when I came in, I really was unsure of myself. School was a struggle, da, da, da. She tried this energy bubble. She said she went back to school and one day she got really good at making it larger and making it smaller. And this bubble is enough that you could still have the good stuff come in, but you're very selective on, the people that you
Wow.
let in. So here she goes. Here's this quiet, like reserved. She says, one day I made it so big that this kid literally ran into his locker. And
Wow.
then she says, and I said to myself, yeah, I did that. And so, I mean, I'm cracking up with just that level shift in confidence that learning these tools and techniques can give these kids, and rather feeling like the world is caving in on them, it is empowering them to take these gifts that are innate that they don't see as gifts. I mean, I talk about how amazing you are and you guys have these, these abilities, and they're looking at me like, who is this person? This is just me.
Right.
And one of my biggest awarenesses that first year was, don't put this stuff on them. Here I am. It's like saying to you, oh, Todd, you're so amazing. Look at this. You got people on your call and da da da. And you're like, okay. And what I learned is these are just kids with the greatest desire to just be a kid. They
Yeah.
just want to belong. They just want to fit in. They want to, and here we are as the adults going, oh, I wish I had the abilities. You're telepathic and you see energy fields, and I want to be like you. And to put that on these kids is like making them even more alienated.
Yeah.
You
More
know,
weirder.
it's that separate. Yeah. So so I learned the hard way. You know, it was one day, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm doing that to these kids. And that was huge to really
That's a big one.
understand. It's huge. It's huge.
That's a really big one.
You know, they
Not
don't,
not just for them. I mean, it's like,
well, for us,
yeah,
I
you
mean,
make a really good point because like for them, they haven't been conditioned yet. Well, they have been suppressed a bit. They come to you or to a Mary or whatever, or even in a group like that. That's really powerful. Um, and then I could see where that would make them feel weirder because there's something about this naturalness that we have that becomes unnatural or uncomfortable when there's a lot of attention. You know, I notice a lot of the women and the few men that are stepping up over as we've moved into this different uh, phase of our evolution at Soulogy, where it's become more and more of what you're representing tonight. They don't want to step up. They're not thinking about it. They don't want accolades. They don't want attention because they're not used to it.
what,
But there's something about the community aspect of it that seems to work. Is that how it works with these kids? I mean, are they able to look at each other and go, hey, you're just like me?
um, yes, but I think they're coming at it differently. Like, why does my mom want me on this call? You know, they know they're different, but in like being empathic. So as a parent, you might notice that your kid melts down every time you go to Walmart.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why is that? Or every time we're with family, there's this huge like sense of being uncomfortable. And over time, we're on our spiritual journey. We learn about the energy, we learn about picking it up and make the connection of, you know what, my kid, this is probably what's happening to him between the electrical stuff and picking up energy. And we can teach an empathic child about energy and how to not own someone else's energy. That's almost like an easy gift to like work with in this world. Imagine a kid with telepathic abilities who it's all just voices in your head. And as a mom, I don't even know you've got those voices in your head, so I can't help teach you how to discern that. So my theory is there's probably a lot more kids than we know that are telepathic right now. And until they get old enough to even have a conversation about what telepathy is, they have no reason to even question their own giftedness. So going back to this, these kids see energy fields around people. I mean, they grew up seeing people like look like this that have no defined outline. But that's what everybody is like. They don't know that you don't see people like that. How would they even think to ask? Like if you talk to somebody who sees auras, it may take them 20 years before they realize that all people don't glow
Yeah.
because nobody told them that people don't glow. Do you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like, so what we're holding up is these amazing high vibrational gifts to us who came in the 60s and 70s and are just now reaching that vibrational level that we can own our own. um, Truly, this is just who they are
It
now.
makes it makes you wonder if we were all born this way and from the get-go, the first no, don't do that, no, don't do that, or you know what I mean? From the get-go, um, we just it wasn't used, so it just went away. It makes you wonder, like, what would happen if I mean, think about it. It would just be like it would be mind blowing to just, you know, day one, everybody just allow the children to find their way, or you know, to energetically run free, right? To encourage, uh, instead of trying to mold, like, you know, society's done. What kind of energetic impact that would have? You know, that's just mind blowing. You know, it's mind
Yeah,
blowing.
it really is amazing. One of the hardest things for me to like stand back. Um, I get myself on a couple of like parent Facebook groups or
Mm-hmm.
parents of psychic kids or psychic da 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 da. Just to kind of, I don't have my own kids. I'm an awesome aunt. I'm a great aunt. Actually, now I'm a great aunt. But not having my own kids, talking to parents, at first I judged that pretty harshly. Who am I to talk to these parents? Finally got over that one, but just to keep a pulse on what's going out there, parents of younger and younger kids are starting to notice weirdness in their children. And the most of the parents, like I said, who have found me are already on a spiritual path. Now, the kids that are coming in, part of their mission may be to actually awaken their parents. So lately I'm actually noticing women who are just starting and are just beginning to wake up. Yet they've noticed this in their kids for a while. And how do you reconcile this? And they're my teacher. I can't even keep up with them. And, you know, so this,
What kind of things are they noticing? I'm just curious.
Well, here's the one Facebook thing that I just jumped out of my skin. So a mom took a video of their 2-year-old, and the kid is screaming and crying, and here she's on, and he's holding his foot, and she's saying to him, honey, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. Stop. And she's doing this, and he's inconsolable. And she's like, oh, there's nothing there. In the meantime, there's this video with these orbs just pouring off of his foot. And there's a few things and I'm like, oh my gosh, 2 things. One, the worst thing, and I tried, I didn't know how to say this. It's like, one, yes, mom, there are things there. And other people started seeing it as well, literally on his foot. Now, working with parents, the biggest thing you can do is, whether you believe this stuff or not, is to at least validate your child's experience. And I'm typing in, like, normally I just pass this stuff up, and it's like, mom, you're his safety. He's looking at you to be his, all kids do. They're looking at the parent to be their safe space. As he's having these horrible experiences, and she's saying, no, honey, it's not happening. Where does that disbelief, that is how the disbelief starts happening. I must be crazy because mom says nothing's happening. And after a while of being told that, you give over because parents are gods. They know what is true. And this Facebook thing turned into this wonderful conversation of people jumping in and having questions. And it was really awesome for me to really see that I can have an impact, you know, the ripple effect that we're talking about, simply by responding to the Facebook. All of a sudden, somebody on that versus somebody like on Michaela's Lightworker inner circle, you know, a whole different group of people. Here's the ones that, of course, these things are happening. And here's the one that something's wrong with my kid. Look, I'll even show you on a video.
That's mind blowing.
If anybody's wondering, you know, how do you support these kids? the most important is just being who you are, living in that heart space and sharing your spirit, than staying, well, that's more of a doing thing. Just being who you are is going to impact these kids. Just as them being in this world and coming with this higher vibration is changing the world, they don't have to do anything other than be present. Yeah. Even if they're not conscious and they never wake up or are activated, just their physical presence in this world is raising the vibration.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then this whole thing, like this space, like there's something about a space where you can walk into a space and, like you said, be yourself, and where there's a respect for everyone's reality, right? Like, so you're talking about this little group of children, right, with these facilitators like yourself. I mean, just think about what that's doing. Like, we could apply that to each other. We got people coming on here talking about everything from being abducted to fairies to, I mean, but there's a respect for everyone's reality. And like, I can't even imagine. I mean, I know it's not 24/7, but you're in the field with these children for, on a linear timeline, certain periods of time, but you're there always, is the way I see it. Have they had an effect on you? Like, do you see any relation between time spent with them? Although that's kind of hard to, but and in your own expansion.
Totally. Going back to like being told by Kaylaa what my mission and purpose was. Okay, the hybrid kids and children. What's my spiritual gift? If any channel, I mean, if anybody who channels or anything else, probably the most common question that anybody ever asks, oh, what are my gifts? And I'm not making fun of that by being playful right now, but truly it was mine. And I can speak from that. It's like, okay, so I want to know, what are my gifts? I see and I compare myself to all these other people, which is the worst thing we can do. Mm-hmm. And I was told that it's your presence. And I'm like, are you sure there isn't anything else? I mean, like, I really wanted to think it was channeling. I want to be a healer. I want to, it's like, my presence? Like, what is that? It's like, how am I going to be of service here? I want to work with your kid. Well, how are you going to do that? Well, just let me sit with them. Okay, well, that's really not in this 3D society going to go over. I got to get a return for, that I'm being playful right now. But so I was really disappointed, honestly, to hear it's a presence, because I didn't understand what that meant. And what's evolved over time is an energy that I take for granted. I don't understand, because just like the kids, it just is. And I don't have to do anything. But the way it translates to these kids, it's like we kind of like you and I. It's like we recognize each other. Yeah. There's an immediate comfortability and respect and acknowledgement that you are beyond amazing. You have no idea. So I am here to kind of be that mirror for you. And as we actually do things, it's helping them recognize that they do have these abilities that they don't call abilities. I don't know what your question was, but it was about.
Well, like, I mean, have you seen like a direct relationship between the time you've spent with them?
Yeah. Okay.
Your own, like, I mean, definitely. I mean, to your point about them being just having the frequency, like, I just picture like 12 of them sitting in this room. I don't got to do anything but get in a chair, sit in a corner, and just watch and receive, right? I mean, it's like a tuning fork, like 12 tuning forks that are all higher than me, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's given me the recent realization that I had. They're reflecting back to me as well. So how I've grown in the last 3 years is exponential in going from I don't have any spiritual gifts. I just have presence to even recognizing that, shoot, I've been journaling and automatic writing for years. Never knew it until I'm reading back some of my journals going, wow, this is really good stuff. And then the recognition of, well, automatic writing is channeling. So I'm actually channeling. And it's like, again, these acceptance of our own abilities has unfolded as I'm seeing it in these kids. And at the same time, like the week I discovered that I'm actually automatic writing, it's like, well, heck, I'm going to share this with the kids. I'm like this little kid myself. It's like, so tonight we're going to talk about automatic writing, and I'm going to let you practice this. And so that night I had kids bring a pencil, bring a paper, and this is what's happening. All you have to do is keep writing. I'm going to set a clock for 3 minutes. And we talked a little bit about what it was and all that stuff. So here's these kids without any clue of what I'm really talking about.
Right.
At the end of these 3 minutes, what I had them do is whatever's in your head, just write it down. And if there's nothing really like deep that it doesn't matter, just keep writing. And it's not like their hand like got taken over. That's not automatic writing. It's just the thought gets immediately put on paper, and eventually your thoughts will shift to that openness of where'd that thought come from.
Yeah.
I didn't even know I knew that word, and that was the word that came out. So I had these kids for 3 minutes write. And unlike adults, when we got done, they all wanted to share. You know, they're not hesitant or self-conscious like we are. I was another one of these nights that I was totally blown away from kids that it was just like nonsense words. And that's what I told them, if nothing else is in your head, then just keep writing. Kaylaa's crazy. Kaylaa's crazy. She's doing these crazy things. And some of the kids just had nonsense words. And then other ones were like, I can't read this. My writing really changed. And I'm like, there you go. That's kind of interesting. And then if their words and vocabulary changed a little bit, that was to me another indication that something's happening. There was this one little 10-year-old from France. This kid gets up at 1 a.m. to join us. He wouldn't share. And I'm like, come on, it's okay. It's a safe group. You know that. And he just was hesitant. Finally agreed, and he read a little bit, and he says, and after that, it's like, I don't know what happened. It's like I got hit over the head, and then the next thing I know, you said stop writing, and I woke up. And he said, so here's my words, but after that, it just looks like scribbles. And I had him hold it up to the camera, and he has a half a page of light language code.
Wow.
I mean, it's like, and he didn't know what light language was. And I'm trying to tell him, and he just went, he didn't care. He just felt like he did something wrong, you know? So without training, without instruction, these kids have access to this kind of information, like as part of normal.
As portals, they're more wide open, right? And I mean, think about that. Who was I watching? I was watching that movie Ray with Jamie Foxx about Ray Charles.
Okay.
Where he went blind at 7 years old, right after his younger brother, but about 18 months younger, died in a horrible accident that he witnessed. And so the energy is the same, right? It's like, but the mother supported his handicap and didn't do him any favor. I mean, and made him feel special as opposed to weird,
defective, or flawed.
Right. And it came through in the movie. I thought, wow, that's just like that was the whole impetus of his life was what she was able to do for him. And it was only probably a period of like maybe 8-9 years. He must have been like 7, and then I think he left about 17. But I'm just thinking of this in terms of like the way you approach this and the way Mary approaches this, and I'm sure others. You know, we've had parents come on here and either speak of their children or actually be accompanied by their children.
I saw one of those. That was
Yeah.
fascinating.
And those are, yeah, I mean, but just to like, I can't remember the names, but just to recall, like, I remember the one mother saying, I knew she was special. She had other children. I knew she was special. Um, it took me a while. And so she kind of woke up first. So it was just this whole evolution. But the point was the mother supporting that child that was different. Right. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's just that's why I say, like, we're reaching one child like your friend did with the girl that made the guy run into the locker.
Yeah.
Think about the ripple of that. And by the way, you said that was your guy. What do you mean? Was his name David?
Well,
That was his,
David, um,
he works with you, or is it your
no,
guy
well,
is in another way?
well, my guy he's my guy.
Ah,
You're my guy now, Todd. No,
oh,
not my guy in that sense. In
that's
2012, at another low point, not
uh-huh,
as low as earlier, I
uh-huh,
was working at a bookstore. I had to leave teaching. I was on disability. I mean,
yeah,
emotionally, physically, all kinds of things happened to switch us down
yeah,
the path. And he showed up. All I knew about him is he did Reiki. This guy fell off a cliff and was saved by the angels. And I'm like, oh, well, that's kind of interesting. I haven't really talked to him, but he did Reiki. And I went to work one morning so stressed out and so whatever. I said, can I have a session?
mhm,
One, I'd probably prefer a female. One definitely wouldn't be a coworker. And I don't even know what Reiki is. But if I can be less stressed, let's do it. And had a session with him, touched on grief of my sister that 15 years of therapy never got to, from like my ankle, Reiki, right? Holding an ankle and holding a knee. All of a sudden, this flood of emotion came out, and I am sobbing on the table in front of this guy that I don't even know, doesn't know my story, doesn't know. And he just kept saying, just breathe. And I'm breathing and I'm sobbing, and it's one of those ugly sobs, you could barely breathe through the table. And all of a sudden, in about 34 seconds, this came. And
in 30
the
seconds, what?
well, it left the emotion, the intensity of that emotion just dissipated.
Okay.
So if obviously, well, the whole, we have blocked emotions and they're in there,
Right.
and whatever he released from that moment on, I got up from the table and I says, wow, this is not your mama's Reiki, is it? I don't know what you just did, but he's highly gifted and intuitive and knows matrix.
That David.
Just that David. So he was my turning point. And for the next 4 years, literally every other week, I went to him, and it was just table work and clearing. It was like the
Wow.
Amazon forest in me of cords and attachments and entities and spikes. And then finally moved into even belief work and how did the beliefs affect all that. And so I'm in 2012.
Fine.
Still do maybe every couple.
He's there in Cleveland and nearby.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, very cool.
So one thing, just before I know we got to, wow, it's 9:30 already.
It's an hour and a half already.
Back to
it's
what
like 10 minutes.
What people can do, if anybody's listening, as far as how do you support these kids? I spent a lot of time on this. I touched on this in my first presentation. So how am I going to really talk about this? It's all about delivery and storytelling and things that I have a problem with, you can tell. So I came up with this acronym. And as a teacher, acronyms are always good. It helps you to remember. And yeah, that teacher self ekes out everywhere. So vibes. One, be yourself. What you can do is actually share your vibes. And in the vibes is this formula that is that respect that you were talking about earlier. And that,
Yeah.
so validate
Yeah.
what their experience is and what they're feeling. Like this mom with the orbs that she didn't know. Validate the fact that this kid is screaming his head off. Something is wrong.
Yeah.
The I in that is show an interest. Be interested in what they're saying. It'll keep them talking. The B is for believing them. And if you can't believe, like when your little kid comes in and says he was just on a spaceship at night, which here I am with Mary Radwell, it's like, yeah, that's stretching me a little bit. At least believe in them. Believe in the fact that their perceptions are valid. The tricky part in having a kid like this is they're human lie detectors. They can tell from the energy that you're speaking, the words you're using doesn't match the energy that you're living. So literally, they know when you're not telling the truth.
Yeah.
So don't tell the kid that you believe he was on a spaceship last night if you don't really believe it, because he's going to think you're lying to him. So we can believe in them. And then the E is like explore. Keep asking questions. Let them go deeper. Don't lead them, but ask open-ended questions. And hey, let's draw a picture of what you saw last night. And then finally, the S is like speak. Really, we need to share our own journey and our own spiritual experiences. And if we are on a path, give them our interpretation of what just happened to them. They may not understand it yet, but we're planting the seed and we're giving them a vocabulary to talk about it. And we can use that, in everyday life with anybody. It doesn't have to be.
That's what I was going to say. I think we should apply that to every one of us, because one of the hard lessons I think for all of us to accept is this whole right and wrong thing, and this fight for the truth. That's a singular thing, but in our interactions, and we're like, well, that's not right, or that can't be, because the what you're saying is their perception is their reality. That is their truth. If I'm playing in the backyard, I just think of these kids, like as a little kid, I play in the backyard by myself all the time in my own imaginary world with my own imaginary friends, right? And that was real to me.
And it was real to you.
It was, and it was real, exactly. But but then to extrapolate that to adulthood, well, now it becomes a little bit, flavored with different things culturally. But yeah, I mean, that's just such a great acronym for all of us. It's the best takeaway of many takeaways tonight. We should resume this, I think.
I would love to. Well, this isn't really self-promoting, but in a couple of months, this would be awesome. Just to kind of clarify in your mind, my Ethan and Kaylaa work. Yeah. Back in March, I ended up taking that huge jump off the cliff and separating myself from the organization and realizing that I've got my own vision and mission that isn't. For 3 years, I was director of the program and it was my work.
Right.
And how could I leave this? How could I walk away from this? Yet I need to fly, and really, who am I in this process? So it was tough. Then as a business, it was really tough as an organization. But I moved into then forming my own group, doing things very similar because it was a really good program. It still is. So why monkey with, if it ain't fixed, don't broke, whatever that saying is. But in October, in this reset of my own leaving work and shifting energy and magical things happening inward, I realized that this program that I am branding for myself also needs this energetic reset.
Right.
What do I really vision for these kids that is unlike the program I just left? It's not just a revamping of what was, it's truly what do I want to make of it, and getting a website out there, which I kind of have a landing page. So it's just been, it's been shift really quick, get this started, don't leave the kids, or reassure these kids that I'm not leaving them. We are contractually bound for the rest of your lifetimes. But now I kind of put a halt on things for 2 months, and I'm really trusting that we're going to reboot with some specific offerings and a website, and probably expand more families than just the kids because of the family unit. So there's really, every day there's all kinds of fun things popping again. Moral of this story, a couple of months, I would love to talk to you again, because this is the same but different. It's
No,
just
I got you.
going to
I
be
got
exciting.
you. Yeah, I was thinking December.
Oh, December.
Yeah, like maybe
Oh,
mid-December. I'm booking, I think, mid-December to late December now. But I think also just some of the, there's just a lot to dig into here.
we got to do the Yeshua thing, because like Jesus ended up in my passenger seats when I was 28, and you're going to love that story. So we got to go there.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, but no, I'm all for that. But the subject of these children is such a it's just something that needs to be put out there. It's full of code, even if you're retelling stories or just being exposed to the possibilities and the realities of what's occurring, like with the work you're doing and Mary's doing. I really feel like it's a top priority.
Oh, cool.
I really do. I know Morgan feels the same way. So yeah, we're all for expanding the awareness of who these children are, what they are, because they're us. Just they're us when we were little. I mean, we just got changed, or whatever you want to call it. But I love what you said too about when you married everything back and said we're these children from the '60s and such, and we're just coming into these things that they're being told are weird in them. It's like we've come all this way to realize that the crazy isn't crazy anymore. It's this,
but they need us though. But they need us right now.
Absolutely.
I mean, we have to hold this space so they can come into recognition.
Yeah.
Because they're still human. I mean, they're still human. They're still going to go through the development. And so I'm going to stop talking, because I can go on for another 15 minutes.
No, we're good.
Yeah,
I'll just hang on a second. Don't get off. We're going to sign off on the stream, and you might want to check the. It looks like my Facebook page, Todd Medina. There's a couple of people that are asking you questions. One of them is, do you need help with the website? So
I will definitely.
This
whoever that is, direct message me, please.
Adrian Parks is her name.
Sweet. That's the topic of conversation these days is the website.
Looks like we're getting trolled pretty good here today.
I noticed Bruce is pretty active.
Oh, he's the Soulogy comedian. You just have to understand his
okay.
He's got an off-planet intellect. So we'll see you guys tomorrow. Hang on a second, Kayla. And
thank you everybody for jumping on. I had a lot of good support saying they were gonna.
Yeah. So you can message her on Facebook. I just told her that. Or do you want her to message you somewhere else?
Yeah, no, Facebook, no. Yeah.
Okay. Facebook. Adrian Parks is her name.
Okay.
All right.
And publicly, I want to thank you, Todd. This has truly been so much fun.
Yeah, we'll do it again.
Brother with the giggle. Yeah.
Right.
There you go. That's it.
All right. I'm going to sign them off.